Like, what is the little thingy where it changes colors to the sky?
Camouflage. Is that what you're
There's
talking
also-
about? Oh, the hands went down. That's what everybody was going to say. Sorry. I should have had somebody else answer. Camouflage. All right, Marissa?
Scare tactics.
Okay, like what? What could be a scare tactic? Tell you what, I'll come back. Alex?
I have one more thing for how bugs defend themselves.
Okay.
Do you remember that like it is the crayon beetle, and it like has three chemicals in it,
Right.
and they form together and makes this type of acid, and it shoots it.
Right.
And it can do, I think, 24 of them in 1 minute.
Yeah, 29 acid bombs within 4 minutes. So yeah. Okay, so that's part of chemical warfare. Nicholas?
Bad odor.
Ugh.
Stink
Some teenagers have that one, don't they? That's how they get rid of their enemies. They just don't wear any deodorant. Woo. Okay, Marissa, what did you find out about scare tactics? Look at that on page 33. Look at that caterpillar there. What does it have on it that might look scary?
The patches of color.
Yeah, it has those patches that look like what? Eyes, and not just any eyes. They look kind of scary. They almost look like snake eyes. So, but it's not even an eye. It just looks like an eye. Anything else? Anything else? Okay. So I think we pretty much covered it all. So let's talk about how insects communicate. So we've already talked about crickets. Remember, they chirp. And you can hear cicadas up in the trees at night. So I wonder what they're doing. Let's read about it. Maybe we'll learn something about how they communicate. Okay, so follow along as I read on page 35. All insects have ways of communicating with other insects of their own kind. This is important for finding food, for defending the nest, and especially for finding a mate. So let's talk about sight. Scientists believe that dragonflies with their big eyes can recognize females by their color. The males of the American dragonfly are blue and green, while the females are yellow-green with brown stripes. So which one sounds prettier?
Blue-green.
Yeah, the blue-green, which is the male. Remember we talked about usually the males are the pretty colors because they are trying to attract the female. So female fireflies see the flashing lights of the males that are looking for them and flash a reply. Each of the 100 species of fireflies has its own secret code. Wow. So have you ever sat outside at night on a summer night and tried to decode the firefly code? I think that would be pretty impossible. So that's pretty amazing what God does. And only the fireflies know. They only know their own language. Mason?
I was just saying that when I caught some fireflies, Melissa tried to attract the code and I did too. And it worked.
Oh yeah? Yeah, it's kind of like, you could take the flashlight or even maybe a lighthouse might have a certain kind of a code. Okay, so that's sight. So they see the colors and they can see the flashing if it has that ability. Now, smell. Because many insects are very small, they are not able to find their mates by sight. Their highly developed sense of smell comes to their rescue. When an insect wishes to attract a mate, it usually gives off a chemical from its glands that produces a certain odor. The insects pick up these odors by the what? Sensilla on their antennae and on other parts of their bodies. So what's the sensilla?
The hairs on the
Mm-hmm.
body.
Right, all those little hairs all over their bodies that sense. So they can pick up that scent with their sensilla. So sight, smell, touch. Some insects produce a chemical but do not release it into the air. In such cases, the insect that wishes to receive a message does so by touching the other insect with its antennae. Ants communicate in this way. How many of you have ever seen two ants come together like that? And it's almost like they're talking. Like, hey, what's going on? Yeah, it's really their antennae touching. And they can even, and remember with their antennae, they can smell and they can even taste. Okay, and it has that, and once they touch, they can smell that certain smell that they give off. Okay, now, don't get any ideas, but dancing. When honeybees find a good source of food, they come back to the hive and share this information with the other bees by doing a dance. Do you guys do that? Maybe you might go, maybe mom just brought ice cream home. Do you go to your brothers and sisters and do a silly dance? And they like, oh, that's the ice cream dance. Okay? You might, but the dance means something. It's not just a silly dance. So a round dance means the source of food is nearby. A waggle dance done in a figure 8 means that the food is farther away. So, anyone want to demonstrate? No? Nobody wants to? Who wants to demonstrate that the food is nearby?
Me.
Jensen. Do a honeybee, the food is nearby dance. Alright, so you're going in a circle. Alright, now who wants to do the food is farther away dance? Alright, whoever wants to do it, stand up and do it. You're doing a waggle figure 8. Whatever that means. Waggle. Okay. Good job. You can sit down. Alright. So, sight, smell, touch, dancing, and the next one is sound. Page 36. Although many insects are silent, others relay messages by sounds. You have heard crickets and cicadas singing, haven't you? The males are calling to the females, telling them they are ready to mate. Most insects produce sound by rubbing one part of their body against another. Cicadas produce sound by contracting their muscles against a drum-like organ at the base of their abdomen. So they have a built-in drum on their bodies. And Braden, you brought in a cicada, didn't you? Crickets and katydids vibrate their wing covers. Males of some fruit flies strike their wings against bristles on their abdomen to make sounds like a flute. Wow, how many of you have ever heard a fruit fly? They're teeny. That's amazing that they could actually hear the sound of the fruit fly, but it makes a flute sound. Some male mosquitoes have antennae so sensitive that they can sense the wing vibrations of a female mosquito. The hearing organs of some insects, such as many kinds of moths, grasshoppers, and cicadas, are on their abdomen. Other insects, such as some kinds of crickets, bees, ants, and termites, have their ears on their legs. The sensilla, the tiny hairs in their bodies, on their bodies, help many insects to pick up sound vibrations. You will remember that the sensilla also gives insects their sense of taste, smell, touch, balance, and temperature. So it's kind of easy to remember that sensilla, okay, sensilla helps the insects sense. Okay, so it's the hairs that help it sense. So sensillas make sense. Okay, now let's see if we can answer the questions without looking. Don't look. Name 5 ways that insects communicate. Who can name all 5 that we just talked about? Autumn? What was the first one? Sense. Well, like, what kind of sense? Be more specific. How do they sense? All right, do the other 4 that you were going to do. Taste. Smell. Touch. What did the kids do around the room?
Touch.
You
Dance.
3. You 3, what'd they do?
Dance.
Dancing.
There's also vibrations.
And,
Vibrations.
well, okay, so we've got,
They can,
just like a person,
they can move their wings really
Touch.
fast and it makes
Touch.
vibration.
right, we've got sight, sight, smell, touch, dance, and sound. Okay, so it's kind of like us. Our 5 senses. Eyes, nose, sound would be ears, touch is
All over.
hand. So really we replace dance for taste. Okay? Because you can't taste to communicate. You know what I mean? Alright. How do honeybees tell their fellow bees where to find a good food supply? And it also, I don't think it mentioned it, but I think it aims the dance in the direction of where the food is, somehow. So the bees watch the dance, and they know it's that direction. So it's pretty amazing. Mason? Oh, did I just get an answer? Sorry. Go ahead. What were you going to say? My bad. I'm sorry. I answered the question. Okay. 2.9. Where insects live. How many of you have ever seen where an insect might live? Okay. Everybody needs a home. Even a tiny insect. Insects make their homes in trees, bushes, soil, wood, water, and even our homes as uninvited tenants. The insect motorhome. Alright, so did you know insects have motorhomes?
No.
That's pretty cool. The caddis worm, which is the number 1, is the larva of an aquatic, water-dwelling insect. The caddisfly. The caddis worm makes itself a very comfortable little home right in the water where it hatches. First it makes a sticky tube, then it puts tiny sticks on the tube to build a cozy little log cabin. Other caddis worms use tiny stones or leaves for building their homes. Some caddis worms make their houses round and others make theirs square, oblong, or in the shape of a snail shell. The handy thing about the caddis worm's house is that the insect can take it along wherever it wants to go. The caddis worm simply sticks its head and feet out the front door and away it goes. We might say it has an insect motorhome. So what does that other animal, what does that remind you of? Kind of like a turtle, right? He can just has his home, but then when he wants to move, sticks his legs out and walks, and his house goes with it. Okay, but in this case, some of them build a stick house, some of them build a stone house, so kind of like us. Okay, we build different kind of houses. All right, home is where the food is. God has given insects instincts to know how to provide for their young. An instinct is a God-given ability or behavior that is inherited rather than learned. Animals are born with many instincts that help them survive. Who remember when we listened to Red Red Robin this morning? What instinct did the robin have that it didn't have to learn? It already just knew. Okay, right. Logan?
They knew when it was a fresh hole that a worm just went in,
Mm-hmm.
and then they stick their beak in there to get it.
Yeah, and they kind of put their head down low like this so it's real close to the ground. And their mom didn't teach them that. They didn't say, let's go out and practice worm hunting. We're going to learn worm hunting 101 today. Okay, they don't learn how to do that. They just know. Insects usually lay their eggs on, in, or near a food supply, so the young can immediately become hardy eaters. The monarch butterfly always lays her eggs on milkweed leaves because that is the food her offspring needs. When the caterpillars hatch from the eggs, their food supply is right there, so they can begin feeding at once. How is that for an instant breakfast? Acorn weevils insert their eggs into acorns. The baby weevils feed on the acorns as soon as they hatch. Many kinds of beetles lay their eggs in the bark or wood of trees. The larvae have a safe place to grow and plenty of wood tissue to eat. The burying beetle, oh, you're going to like this one. The burying beetle, also called sexton beetle, looks for a dead mouse or bird to bury. Working very hard, the tiny insect, usually aided by another, digs a shallow grave for the dead animal. Then they move the animal, which is much larger than themselves, bit by bit to the gravesite, where it sinks into the ground and is covered with loose soil. The insect then dig a tunnel for themselves near the dead animal, and the female lays her eggs. When the eggs hatch into larvae, the beetle parents do not need to go grocery shopping. The larvae just feed on the dead animal in their backyard. Oh, isn't that nice? Aren't you glad when you were born, your parents didn't put a dead mouse in your crib and say, hey, when you wake up, just start nibbling on this little dead mouse. But usually right after you're born, usually you start drinking milk right after you're born. So it's very similar. So all kinds of things. So they either eat dead animals or put them on a certain plant like the milkweed. Okay, you're going to love this next one. Turn to page 38. You think the dead animal was gross? Listen to this one. A parasite, or an animal or plant that attaches itself to another animal or plant and feeds on it. Is an animal. The animal or plant on which the parasite feeds is called the host. Many insect parasites lay their eggs on other insects. When the young hatch, they feed on the insects upon which they were born. Parasitic wasps that lay their eggs on caterpillars are one example of insect parasites. The young get free room and board, but what about the poor host? It will be greatly weakened and probably die. The mud wasp builds a little house of mud and saliva. She then paralyzes a number of spiders with her sting and drops them into her nest. Finally, she lays her eggs and closes the lid of her mud house. When the eggs hatch, the young are surrounded by fresh food. Okay, I thought they were going to talk about, we'll keep reading, but there is also the dung beetle. Guess what they lay their eggs on? Yep. They carry dung or manure, poop from animals, and they bury that, and then they lay their eggs on it so that when they're young hatch, they have their meal right there. And it's not chocolate, it's poop.
Chocolate. Imagine exactly which one.
Alright, Logan.
You know, in a show called Animals
Logan's talking.
a show called Animals on Earth, I think that's what it's called. They talk about all the animals, and then they get other people to talk for the funny voices, and they tell facts about them. And then they did one kind of like the one we were just talking about, not the dung beetle, that's disgusting. The wasp thing, it kills a spider and then takes it in.
Yeah.
I think I saw that one in it, and they kept calling it a jerk because it kept killing it.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think it lays its eggs on the spider.
Yeah, it might.
It's
Gross. Okay, so let's read about lice. Remember, that was one of the plagues of Egypt. God sent a plague of lice. So let's read what that is. Lice are homebodies traveling only 1 or 2 inches during their entire lifetime. Wow. So a little lice only travels about that far its whole entire life. They are attached to their home, which is an animal's feather or fur, or in the hair of a human upon which they feed. Some eat their host's blood. They do not need to travel. All the food they need is right where they live. So, yeah, that makes me itch just thinking about it. Okay, Brayden?
Sometimes we watch a show, and one of them, they had lice in their hair.
At where?
On a show.
Oh, on their show, I know. Yeah. Sometimes if you get near a person, lice will, you might get lice in your hair, and then they lay their eggs in your hair, and then you have to use a chemical and comb the lice out. It's pretty gross.
I'm telling you.
Okay, Jacob.
I watched a show.
Go ahead.
I don't know if it was a wasp or a bee, but this guy put a bunch of bees on him, and then he smoked, so it wouldn't go on his eyes or mouth, and then they just stayed there.
Oh, that doesn't sound like fun to me. Lucas, is your hand up?
No.
Oh. Okay, let's keep reading, okay, so we can keep moving on. So, let's talk about other places that eggs are laid. The praying mantis finds a suitable branch and secretes foam from her body onto it. She lays her eggs in the foam and then covers the eggs with more foam. The foam hardens into a snug little case, a safe, warm place for the eggs to stay until they are ready to hatch. We might wish she was as caring of her husband. She usually eats him. Ew.
I forgot
They eat their husband?
Yeah.
That is not good.
I don't think my husband would taste very good. He's too skinny. Okay. All right, mosquitoes. Mosquitoes lay their eggs on plants growing in or near the water. The larvae live in the water of ponds, stagnant pools, mud puddles, or even old water-filled cans. Sometimes mosquitoes can be controlled by filling in ponds and pools thus destroying their nurseries. Often this is not practical, however, and the larvae must be killed by applying an insecticide to the breeding area. An insecticide is a chemical used to kill insects. Mosquito control is important because mosquitoes are carriers of many diseases. In fact, when they were building the Panama Canal, most of the men died not from accidents, but from mosquitoes, scarlet fever. Mosquitoes came and bit them, and then they got scarlet fever and died. So if there's a pond somewhere and the water doesn't move and it gets real green and yucky on top, there's probably mosquito eggs on top too. That's where they like to lay their eggs. Okay, one more is the giant water bug on top of page 39. The giant water bug lays her eggs in a most interesting place. She glues them on the back of her mate, forcing him to be responsible for the family, whether he wants to or not. I don't think my husband would like the babies glued on him. Okay? All right. Micah, run away. Okay, so consider the ladybug. Would somebody like to read?
Where's the picture of the water bug?
We're on there's no picture. Top of page 39 though. Jacob, you want to read some? Nice and loud. Have you ever
watched a ladybug crawling along the stem of a plant? The ladybug or ladybird beetle was probably hard at work. This insect is one of man's best friends because its prey hunts for insects. Includes aphids, green flies, and scale insects. Scale insects are very tiny creatures that live on plants and suck the juice from them. Although scale insects are small, they can do a great deal of damage to fruit, trees, and other crops.
aphids?
Aphids multiply very rapidly and do
Tremendous.
harm to plants with their piercing second mouth parts. A ladybug larva can eat 500 aphids each day. What a help to farmers and great gardeners.
Okay, somebody else want to read? Alex?
How can
So
they
because the beginning of the paragraph's at the bottom. Because the ladybug. It's just
Oh,
it's right
found
there.
it.
Yeah.
Because the ladybug has such a large appetite, gardeners and farmers often buy ladybugs to help control the insect pests. How can they get the insects from one place to another? Many kinds of ladybugs migrate to mountain canyons to hibernate, go into a long, deep sleep. For the winter, ladybug hunters know where to look for other insects because for many generations they choose the same spot to hibernate. One prospector found about 750 million ladybugs in one place. The sleeping ladybugs are packed carefully in sacks of straw and refrigerated until spring. Then they are shipped out in boxes of pine cones. This gives the ladybugs a safe place to travel. Farmers and gardens buy the ladybugs by once 2 ounces of ladybugs will take care of the pets on the
pests on 1 acre.
acre of land.
Mhm.
Surely,
Keep reading.
surely the little ladybug is a wonderful provision of God's for man well-being.
Good. So when you see a ladybug, should you smush it?
No.
No, because they are very useful. They kill all those little tiny aphids and things that are bad for gardens. And they eat all they eat the bad bugs. Go ahead.
You know how you said that there's no picture on this page of the water bug?
Right.
It says see picture on 32.
Oh, you're right.
See?
Right. Yep. That's true. Okay, so you can actually see the ladybugs are here, but look at that little tiny aphid. Can you see it underneath that little blossom there? That's what the ladybugs eat. And how many can they eat up to
3 pounds.
500 aphids each day.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. Okay. I want you to get out your activity book, and I want you to turn to page 13. Yes, Jacob.
It probably is. It rained a lot.
I haven't heard, so does that mean
It probably is because it's like really wet.
well, I know, but it's not raining. Okay, I tell you what, I want you, how about this? Why don't you on page 13 see if you can label as many of these as you can. And then we'll go over the answers, okay, in a couple minutes. Let me figure out whether, all right, so we've got a grid of 25. So, number 1, easy, we just talked about that. What is number 1?
Ladybug.
A ladybug.
Wait.
Do you have a question, Brayden? Okay, what did you have for number 2? Anybody get number 2?
No.
Okay, it's back, you have to look probably back in your book at the flowers for Canada. That's called remember, what's the first flower that grows after a forest fire?
The fireweed.
Fireweed. Fireweed. Okay, number 3, what bird is that?
Robin.
Robin.
Cricket.
Number 4 is a what?
Honeybee.
A honeybee. And then number 5 is a cricket.
It's a
So you can tell it's a cricket because its wings are laying down flat, right? Okay. Now,
also because it's tinier than it.
Number 6. This is another bird.
Is it the black?
Okay, so this was the robin. All right, and then the next bird for number 6 is a mockingbird. What does a mockingbird do?
It knocks.
Yeah, mimics. Can everybody read that board okay? They're kind of squished. Now, the next animal, number 7, we read about how they bury their eggs inside of an acorn. A weevil. Good. And then number 8 is grasshopper. All right, who can tell me what the name of that flower is for number 9? How many petals does it have? Trillium, right? Because it has 3 petals.
Wasn't it called the white trillium?
I think there are white trillium, but I think in general is trillium.
I just read white trillium.
And then I'm gonna have to come down here. What's number 10?
Woolly bear.
A woolly bear.
I have like a bunch of those at my house.
Do you?
Woolly bear. I used to call them Buddy Wonk. I don't have any more props for you.
Number 11. Does anybody know what that
Is
is?
it a wasp?
Not a wasp. A hornet. Hornet.
Is that nest in the hornet or a
I think hornets are generally bigger. They're more of a bigger kind
And they
of.
also have red eyes instead of white.
Do they? All right, number 12 is a gnat. Remember, you spell it G-N-A-T. Like a gnat. G-N. Number 13. I'm gonna go down here. What's 13? Dragonfly. Number 14. What kind, right? A cabbage butterfly. Because why is it called a cabbage butterfly? Yeah.
And the next one is pitcher plant.
Oh, wait a minute. Don't get ahead. Okay. What is it? Number 15?
It's a pitcher plant.
Pitcher plant. So
It's the sad picture.
who can remember what the pitcher plant does?
It traps its food and its sap inside of its
Yeah, it actually eats
thing.
bugs. And that's one of the stories we're going to listen to.
Does it also feed bugs?
I don't know. I don't know. Okay, number 16 is a what?
Wasp?
A yellow jacket. You can kind of tell they're, I don't know, they just kind of have a pointy abdomen. And they're obviously yellow. They have a jacket that looks yellow.
It looks like they have a poisonous. Yellow jacket. Chinese yellow jacket.
Numbers, Nicholas?
Oh, I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, okay. Let's keep going. So we're almost done.
Live beetles.
Goliath beetle.
Live
okay, Dylan? Keeping up?
Yeah.
If you want, I can write it. Number 18 is, no?
Is it the new brush thing?
No.
Brush whip?
It's a,
Wait, no, it's perfect.
right, it's a Mountain Avens. You see that on there?
Can we just write Avens? Avens.
No.
Okay.
It almost looks like the flower of a water lily. Like that float on the top of a pond.
Okay.
And then number 19, the pilgrims like this flower. The Mayflower. I know, what? Micah.
May shower.
May shower. May shower. It doesn't really rain.
Oh, I remember
Alright, we have 5 more. Number 20 is, right, large milkweed bug.
Do you have to write large? Or just milky? But
I don't know. By the time you asked me, you could have had it written. And then number 21, monarch. Because it's not a viceroy, it doesn't have that extra line on the bottom wing.
I thought it was the painted lady.
Number 22.
Black swallowtail butterfly.
Good.
Do we have to write butterfly? Yeah. Or can we just walk?
I guess not. As long as you remember.
We have to write butterfly.
Okay, what's the name of 23? Walking stick.
Walking stick. What's the insect?
Well, I think stick bug is kind of the nickname.
How about a stick insect?
Let's just say walking stick.
Walking stick. That's a nice name for it. Walking stick. Almost done, and then we can have
2 more. Number 24 is a,
Western red lily.
good, Western red lily.
number what?
24.
Aw. I thought that was something else.
And then the last one is usually the first flower blooming in spring. It comes up through the snow sometimes.
It's
even.
the
Purple
Well, Manitoba is the territory, but
Purple violet.
prairie crocus.
Prairie